Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a complete pattern switch which is going to be happening over the next couple of weeks. We're going to be seeing all that warm air move from the northern and western United States, and eventually that's going to move into the eastern United States, and that chilly air is going to move from the eastern United States in through the southern part of the country and also back into the western part of the country as well. So we're going to be dealing with a complete reversal of this pattern. We're also going to be going over a couple of breaking weather stories in terms of hurricane reanalysis, which actually put the 2020 hurricane season on par with 2005, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the beginning part of this video. So to start things off, let's look at your current National Weather Service page. As you can see, we have not a lot going on in the western United States. We have a few flood watches along the Gulf Coast, a severe thunderstorm watch which is currently in effect along the southeast as well. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, and some frost advisories up for parts of the interior northeast, going from parts of Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio, I believe even a little bit of Kentucky as well, all the way up into parts of Maine and New Hampshire. We have freeze warnings and freeze watches which cover parts of Virginia, West Virginia, and westernmost Maryland. All those areas are dealing with the chance of seeing a hard freeze for tonight and into tomorrow morning. Yesterday, we had a high temperature in Rio Grande Village, Texas, where they got up to 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and a low temperature 37 miles northwest of Vernal, Utah, where they got down to 13 degrees Fahrenheit. We had a highest precipitation report in Shreveport Regional Airport, Louisiana, where they got up to 3.87 inches of rainfall, and the high snowfall report yesterday was in Bear Lake, Colorado, where they got 16 inches of snowfall. So, some breaking news that we got maybe I would say 30 minutes ago as of when I'm recording is that they did, based on reanalysis, they actually upgraded Hurricane Zeta, which I believe originally was a category 2, and they actually upgraded that to a category 3, which it says right there. And the only reason that is really majorly significant, if they upgraded it from a category 1 to a category 2, wouldn't really be too big of a deal. But the main reason is because we had originally, before this news came out, 6 major hurricanes in that we had in 2020, and in 2005 we had 7 major hurricanes, so we did not break that record. And now that they've actually made this a category 3, it's officially a major hurricane based on reanalysis, and now we have 7 major hurricanes that we found in the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season, and that ties the record with the previous record-breaking 2005 season. So that's one of the reasons that I thought this was really more significant. Not necessarily that it was a huge shift. It was, I believe, just a few miles per hour difference in the storm. So I believe it went from 110 miles per hour to 115 miles per hour. On the face of that, that's not really too big of a deal, but just the category shift will make a big difference when you're talking about statistics from previous seasons. So that's one of the reasons that this is a little bit more significant than any other type of news story that would have been breaking if this was maybe a category 1 or category 2. Here's the severe thunderstorm watch to kind of move along here into what's currently happening. We have that up for parts of Alabama, Georgia, and the panhandle of Florida. This goes through some big cities like Panama City, Tallahassee, Albany, Georgia. So a lot of these big cities with a lot of people living in them do have some severe thunderstorm watches currently in place, and that is because of some rather large thunderstorms that are rolling through these areas. So here is what the current radar looks like, and you can see we have a little bit of a hook right along I-75, and then cutting across I-10, we have a big line of storms which goes all the way from the Georgia-Florida border down even further south of the coastline. So that's where we're dealing with that second line of storms, and even though it doesn't look like it's impacting anywhere on land with too big of impacts, it will eventually be making its way on land as that track kind of goes right into that little area of the panhandle that sticks out near Apalachicola. As that happens, as it continues its trajectory to the south and east, it will actually again go over some big cities like Apalachicola. So that is one of the reasons that this southern line also wants to be watched out for. It's not as severe as the one to the north, but still you might be dealing with a couple thunderstorms if you live in that area. So let's start talking about the temperature anomalies compared to your normal, and anywhere in the blue, the green, the purple. This is is where you're going to be dealing with below normal temperatures in the orange, the red, and even that brown or white color. That's where we're dealing with the above normal temperatures, or the warmer than normal temperatures. So we're going to be seeing all this warm air move from the western United States, and eventually by the end of this model run, you're going to see that it's in pretty much the northeastern quarter of the country. So it's going to be pretty much the exact opposite of what we have right now, and the southeast might still linger on with some of that cold air, and the western United States will still probably be, or will probably add on a little bit more cold air, and they will actually go into the below average category as of what we're currently expecting. So here's by tomorrow, and you can see that we're expecting that cold air still to be in the east, with that warm air into the west. If we play this along a little bit more, you can see that by Friday, we still have mostly just the northern part of the country, and also into the western half of the country with those warmer temperatures. If you live pretty much anywhere east of the Rockies or east of the plains, we're dealing with below normal temperatures, except if you live further to the north. So for the vast majority of the country, it will be below normal still by Friday. If we go into Saturday, pretty much the same story. Not too much has changed by this point. That warm air is collapsing in on the cold air a little bit more, though, as you can see. And by Saturday, and especially by Sunday, which you're going to see on the next frame, we do actually start to see the first signs of a little bit of cold air start to spread out onto the west coast, and you're going to start to see that expand into pretty much the entire western United States over the next 5 or 6 frames that you're going to see right here. So here's by Sunday. You can see in the west coast, we still do have a little bit more cold air that's expanding slightly, and then in the eastern United States, that cold air is shrinking because of all that warm air that's taking place. So just to kind of break down what's happening, we do have a couple centers of high pressure. We have one that's kind of spread out over parts of southern Canada and the northern United States, and then in the northwest we also have another area of high pressure with some low pressure into parts of the southwest. So that's what's generally happening here, and that's why we have this dynamic type of weather pattern. And if we just play this on a little bit more, you're going to see that pretty much the entire northern half of the country is dealing with those above normal temperatures by Monday, the 17th of May, and then the lower, I would say probably the lower half, or maybe lower 2/3 of the country, is dealing with below normal temperatures by this point. And if we continue this even more, you're going to start to see again those colder temperatures expanding along the west coast, the colder temperatures in the southern half of the country shrinking ever so slightly, and then the warmer temperatures expanding in the northern half of the country. You can see that high pressure is pretty much consolidating over the Midwest, and that's going to just eventually make a jump into the Northeast and the Great Lakes, and you're going to see that on your next frame here. You can see that we have that warm air mass now into the eastern and northern half of the country, and then in the West, pretty much exactly the opposite of what we started with, where we were dealing with fairly warm temperatures, nice mild temperatures in these areas in the western United States. Well, that pretty much all shifted by Thursday of next week, Thursday time frame. We go into much more of a chillier and colder pattern into these areas, and the eastern United States goes into a warmer pattern, still lingering on maybe for another couple days onto those chillier temperatures in the southern United States, although I do think that'll be actually quite comfortable, where you're going to be dealing with temperatures in the 70s and 80s instead of those high 80s, the upper 80s, and the low 90s, which are a lot less comfortable, I would say. So maybe the below normal temperatures are actually a little bit wanted in parts of the southeast. And then if we look at Friday, just to go one more day out, you can see that the warm temperature is pretty much staying in the same place. The cold air breaking up in the western United States, but pretty much consolidating and staying over the southern plains and the southeast as well. But again, those temperatures, those colder temperatures, starting to move away and starting to break apart. I think for the later half of May, the later week, the last week I would say of May, you're going to start to go into a much warmer, nicer, and pleasant pattern in terms of the temperatures. 2 days that I do think have the risk for some frost or freeze issues. Of course, for tomorrow morning, where we had all those frost advisories and freeze warnings, I would say anyone that lives within this area, right within this area right here, so in the Great Lakes and into the interior Northeast, if you are on a farm or you have a garden, just make sure that you are covering up your plants just to keep them safe from all the frost and freeze issues that we do have. Now, this would be for tomorrow morning, so tonight into tomorrow morning. Temperatures generally between about 33 and 36 degrees Fahrenheit, higher elevation regions and areas potentially closer to the Great Lakes, the actual lakes themselves. I would say if you're within about 10 miles, those are the areas that could be maybe around 32 or 33 degrees. They could get a little bit chillier than the surrounding areas. And if you look at for Friday, not as much of a concern. So this is Friday morning and Thursday night. These are what the low temperatures are. You can see that maybe in parts of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, upstate New York, maybe some parts of western Michigan lingering around 36, 37 degrees. It should be a weak frost, not as intense as before. And if you live pretty much anywhere else in the eastern United States, not a whole lot to worry about in terms of frost or freeze issues, as you're going to be in the mid 40s or even the 50s for your low temperature. So only really 2 days this week that I think upcoming this week that I think might have some issues in terms of frost, and especially for tonight, maybe a few more issues on Friday, but not as severe as what we're dealing with for tonight. So here's a look at your actual high temperatures. We're gonna skip forward a little bit all the way to Sunday. So the weekend, we're dealing with nice pleasant temperatures for pretty much the entire country. We're dealing with high temperatures in the 60s, the 70s, pretty much everywhere you see. The only exception I would say is in the higher elevations of the Rockies, and maybe a few isolated areas in the Great Lakes, but other than that, pretty much the entire country with nice temperatures over 60 degrees. So everywhere is dealing with rather pleasant temperatures. It's only at night when you start to feel those chillier temperatures, and that's when it starts to get a little bit more uncomfortable. But this time of year, even if you're a couple degrees below normal, it's not too bad, and it's definitely manageable. Here to be by Monday, and you can see that we're dealing with those warm temperatures really expanding over the northern United States. So you can see how areas in the Dakotas and Montana rivaling what the temperatures are down in Texas and New Mexico potentially. So rather well above normal temperatures in these areas. We're dealing with not as warm in parts of the southeast. Now remember, these areas are actually a couple degrees below normal, but I think it will actually be a lot more comfortable in these areas. You're going to have lower humidity values and also temperatures maybe getting up to 80 or 85 degrees compared to what you would be dealing with in a regular pattern where you would be in the 90s in some of these areas. So I do think it will be actually rather comfortable in the southeast, so not too much to complain about through those areas. Here to be by Tuesday, still warming up, upper 60s into the 70s, even some 80s as you get into the northern plains and then also into the southeast and south central United States. Also, if you live in the southwest, we're dealing with temperatures in the interior southwest that could get up into the triple digits, probably into the mid 90s if I had to make a forecast right now. But the rest of the western United States mainly dealing with temperatures ranging from the 50s in the northwest all the way up into the 70s and 80s in parts of the southwest. Here would be by Wednesday, the 19th of next week. And you can see just an early estimate of what we're expecting, but 80s all through the southern United States. We're dealing with 70s, very nice temperatures into the northern half of the country. The northwest is where we're dealing with more of the colder temperatures, but even those areas are dealing with temperatures near the upper 50s or 60s. Not the most pleasant, but definitely manageable, and nothing that's really too bad in terms of severe cold temperatures. Here would be by Thursday, and you can see that we have the warmer temperatures expanding over much of the eastern United States. And then by Friday, looks like Friday of next week, so this would be the 21st, and we're going a little bit out here, but definitely it's good to take a look just a little bit further out, not necessarily to get precise in terms of the temperatures, but just to get a good idea. And we're dealing with rather warm temperatures all across the board in these areas. Here's the 6 to 10 day outlook, which goes from the 17th through the 21st, and you can see all of the pretty much all of the United States either near normal or above normal, and the only exception would be westernmost Washington State. That's the only cutout that has a small chance of being below normal through this 6 to 10 day outlook. If we look at the 8 to 14 day outlook, only the warm air only expands. So this would be from the 19th through the 25th, and you can see that we have that big area of fairly above normal temperatures, pretty much from west coast to east coast. So really nice, pleasant weather pattern that we're going into. If you're worried about getting too much rainfall, that would be where I think you might be a little bit correct, because we are dealing with the threat of some higher amounts of rainfall, especially into the central part of the country, from the Gulf Coast all the way up into states like Iowa, Nebraska, Missouri, Illinois. So those types of states into the Central Plains and also into the Great Lakes is where we could be dealing with over the next 10 days, maybe a few inches of rainfall. But if you live in the western United States, not dealing with a lot of rainfall. If you live in the northern plains and the northeast, not dealing with a lot of rainfall. And actually, if you live in the northern plains, you guys actually need a little bit of rainfall. So just getting maybe up to an inch of rainfall will actually be quite nice, especially to help with farming, and also just to kind of get a little bit of water onto the grass and plants there as well. So looks like it will be a little bit active through the central part of the country. On either coast, it looks like it'll be less active, where it'll actually be drier over this next about 10 days. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.